Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the South Hills. We're delighted that you could all join us for this service, whether you're here in person or online. Our mission at Sunnyhill is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Bradley Convis, and I'm proud to serve as a worship associate for this congregation. Thank you. And thank you to my lovely staff. If you're a newcomer to our congregation, we welcome you to seek out our welcome table, or encourage you to seek out our welcome table, where we can try to answer any questions you might have about UU and about Sunnyhill. And we'd like to add you to our weekly newsletter email blast called The Beat. That way you can keep up with what's happening here at Sunnyhill. Also, if you're watching online today, please go to sunnyhill.org, click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill, and that's where you can receive more information about our congregation. A gentle reminder to everyone, if you have cell phones or other noise-making electronic devices, please silence them now so that our time together will not be disrupted by buzzing or ringing. We appreciate your willingness to wear masks while we're crowded together under the tents today. Please feel free to take off your mask if you feel safely social distanced later, but keep the masks on while we're under the tents. Now we will light our flaming chalice, which is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, with these words: As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other.
Good morning. The Persian poet Rumi challenges us, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair, come, yet again, come. And we come from rich heritages of liturgy and pomp. We come from burning legacies of angry gods and threats of hellfire. We come just as we are.
We come with exuberant and joyful hearts, eager to witness to others, to come bereft of goodness of life, of the goodness of life, wondering, hesitant. We come just as we are.
We come in the bloom of youth, ready to explore new truths. We come ready to sit apart from our children and be nourished for an hour. We come with gray in our hair and experiences to share. We come just as we are.
We come to the place we never knew before was home. We come to the place that has been home for most of our lives.
We come just as we are to join one another as members of one family in this beloved home. Our hands and hearts outstretched, come, yet again, come. As you might have predicted, we're going to be singing Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Let's do it in unison once and then as a two-part round 3 times through. So Mary and I will sing it together, and then Mary, if you start,
I'll start the round
on that side, and I'll lead this side. And it is a contest, by the way. We notice which side does better, so put something into it.
No caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Here we go.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Wander yet again, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Wander yet again, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Thank you.
Good morning. All right, we're going to try something a little bit new for our story this morning. If there are any children present, if you would like to join us in the grass up at the front, that way you can hear the story a little bit better, please come on up. Get cozy. Just watch the wires over here. I'd come around this way. There we go. And you can have a seat if you'd like, or a stoop. There we go. So good to see your faces this morning, even just the eyes. All right. Do you remember your first day of school?
Yes.
Yes?
I think so.
I remember mine. How about out there? Do you remember your first day of school? Yeah? Your parents and grandparents probably remember their first days too. Probably everyone remembers, no matter how long ago it was. Going to a new place and starting something new can be exciting, and sometimes a little scary. We have a lot of questions.
Like, where do I sit?
What time do we eat?
Where's the bathroom?
Am I allowed to climb those trees?
Does the teacher expect me to do homework?
And of course, when's recess?
At school, the teacher shows us where things are and explains how things work. She tells us the rules. Once we know what we are expected to do and what we are allowed to do, it's not quite as scary anymore.
Sometimes, though, there is no teacher. On the playground, it's just the kids. Sometimes we make up our own game, and we decide how it ought to be played. Sometimes we make the rules.
On the jungle gym, we can decide that the red bars are fire and you can't touch them when you climb. When we play tag, we can decide that the person who is it has to count to 10 before they start chasing everybody else. It can be a lot of fun to make up the rules to your very own game. You get to make it just the way you like it. That is, if the other kids agree. But what if you think the red bars on the jungle gym are fire and can't be touched, but another kid says that the red bars are fine and you can touch them however you want?
There are a lot of different ways to play a game. And if you don't want to play all by yourself, and you can't play tag all by yourself, then everybody has to agree on what the rules are while you're playing. Maybe you can keep all the rules, or maybe you can change some of them.
Somehow, some way, after discussing and changing and arguing and compromising, everybody agrees on what the rules should be. Maybe you don't like one of the other kids' rules all that much, and maybe someone else doesn't like your rules all that much, but you both agree to them anyway because you got some rules you liked and so did the other person. Then finally, everyone promises to each other to follow the rules with no cheating, and we can play the game.
When we agree to follow the rules we make together, we are covenanting with each other. A covenant is a promise to each other about what we are going to do and how we're going to behave. We need a covenant to have fun playing a game.
Covenants are not only for the playground. They can be made by people in families and by students and teachers in schools. They can be made in religions too. Our Unitarian Universalist religion has a covenant. Our UU covenant was made about 50 years ago when your parents and grandparents were young, if they were born at all. Back then, there weren't any Unitarian Universalists. There were Unitarians and there were Universalists, two different religions with different names, different buildings, different songs, different rules. The Unitarians and the Universalists had been talking to each other for a very long time. Even though they had different rules for how they did things, they realized they agreed on many important ideas, many principles of life, just like the kids on the playground. They had different rules, but they wanted to play the same game.
In 1960, they decided to play together. They knew they had to figure out new rules that all the Unitarians and the Universalists would agree to follow. It took them almost 1 year. After discussing and changing and arguing and compromising for months and months, the Unitarians and the Universalists from hundreds of different congregations agreed on 6 principles, 6 rules that they all could agree to follow. It's true that one person might not have liked another person's ideas for rules all that much, and maybe that person didn't like the first person's rules all that much, but they agreed to follow them anyway, because they knew that they both got a lot of the rules that they wanted, and they got to play together.
They compromised.
And they covenanted.
They decided to play the same game.
25 years later, in 1985, they added one more principle to make it 7. You may have already heard of the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. These are the rules that Unitarian Universalists agreed to follow. Number 1, each person is important. Number 2, be kind in all you do. Number 3, we're free to learn together. 4, we search for what is true. 5, all people need a voice. 6, build a fair and peaceful world. And 7, we care for Earth's lifeboat. We're even talking about adding one more principle to make it 8. That principle says, we believe in building a diverse, beloved community where we work together to end racism and oppression. We'll be talking more about that in the future. But for today, in RE class, we'll be talking more about covenants, but also playing some games. We'll work out rules for the times when we are together. We may have to make some compromises in order to get most of the rules we want. When we promise to each other to follow the rules we make, we're covenanting with each other, just like the kids on the playground playing tag, just like the Unitarians and Universalists did 50 years ago. So, for all of our kiddos present, preschool and up, you're welcome to join me. We're going to be meeting at the back gate. Miss Christie's waving her hand back there. And we're going to try to sing the kids out once again. Rev Jim, will you tell us what to do?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done this, but it's going to be the same song we used to use for those of you who remember the old days. It's as you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always as you go, as you go. This is the time in our service when we share joys and sorrows submitted by members of the congregation. We do this so that we can share and hold together in this community both the things that we're celebrating as well as the things that we're struggling with or grieving. Sorrow from Kathy Maeda. Kathy's husband Pat is in failing health after struggling with heart failure for some time now. Please send light and healing thoughts to Kathy and Pat and their family. Please respond by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." We hold you in our hearts. A sorrow and a joy on behalf of Scott Smith and Peg Hart. As some of you know, Scott was hospitalized after suffering a heart attack several weeks ago. The medical team put in a stent, and Scott has now recovered and resumed his usual activities. To Scott and Peg, we hold you in our hearts. Have a sorrow from Gloria Willis. Gloria says, "I never get headaches. However, I've had a severe headache for 2 days, which necessitated a trip to the ER today. After many tests and many hours, I was diagnosed with shingles. Hopefully we caught it early enough so it won't be too horrid. Please send healing energy my way." To Gloria, we hold you in our hearts. And a combined joy and sorrow from Mike Gravitt. Mike says, "My guide dog Lola and I were involved in a pedestrian accident Friday morning near our home in Beachview, caused by a woman backing out of her driveway and not paying attention. Miraculously, we are both physically okay, but Lola is greatly traumatized and unable to perform her job at the moment. This is why you will not see her wearing a harness today." Mike says, "I can say, though my vocabulary is weak, I can say undoubtedly the actions Lola took were taken with immediacy, urgency, intelligence, precision, and significantly impacted the outcome in a positive way. I know I am partial," Mike says, "but I feel her actions were undoubtedly heroic. It proves the love and bond we share and the incredible training by Guiding Eyes for the Blind. My goal is now to locate surveillance video to fully showcase the scene. If anyone is able to assist, I will donate to Sunnyhill for success in locating useful video. Thank you as always for your support." To Mike, Jana, and Lola this morning, we hold you in our hearts. I have a meditation and prayer that I will share, after which we'll sing or hum together, Spirit of Life. Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. There are times when all we want is quiet, when all we want is a rest and a break from the tumult, the uncertainty, the breakneck pace, the struggle. And so we pause to regain our balance, to gain perspective, to perch for a moment and find a place of purposeful repose. But as we pause, we know that the struggle is what helps us grow, is what helps us strive, helps us know that what we are doing matters. We pause for a moment of shared silence amidst the noise of our lives. May we re-enter the fray of life with eager minds, with open hearts, with hands ready to reach out and help. to lift up those places where we are wounded, those places where our world is wounded, working together to heal what might be healed and to love all that which must be loved. Amen. Today's sermon is the second in my series on F words. That is, words associated with religion beginning with the letter F that can be problematic in some way. Last month, my F word of the month, at least from the pulpit, was faith. The pandemic has just wreaked havoc on my language, by the way. Today, I want to explore the concept of forbearance and suggest to you that practicing forbearance is an essential aspect of healthy, justice-focused community. The story that Jen and I told earlier provided some really good background on the concept of covenant and why it's important to us as Unitarian Universalists. In fact, it is a central component of our religious tradition. In the absence of creeds or required statements of belief, covenant becomes even more important than it might be in other religious traditions. The piece that our choir sang a few minutes ago is based on one of our historic Unitarian Universalist covenants that we recite in this congregation each time we receive new members. It includes the word, "This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another," which is another indication of how important covenant is to us. In fact, the concept of covenant is so important that we're going to be focusing on covenant off and on again over the course of this whole church year in worship services and in other ways, including, I hope, developing a congregational covenant, which will involve the participation of everyone in the congregation in one way or another. In order for covenant to work, to function properly, there are three essential practices that must be present. They are forbearance, which means knowing when to step up and when to step back. Goodwill, which means really wanting the community to thrive and succeed and not wanting to tear it down. And vulnerability, which means being willing to admit to and embrace our own imperfections and shortcomings. All three of those things, forbearance, goodwill, and vulnerability, must be present in order for any covenant to be effective and for any community to be healthy and functional. Today, as I said, I'm focusing on the first of those qualities, forbearance, which I will admit sounds like something of an antiquated term. You don't hear a whole lot of talk about forbearance these days as a virtue. The concept of forbearance seems to have very little to do with what's happening in our national discourse, which now, more than ever before, is characterized by unchecked anger. In fact, it could be argued that we have made a virtue of anger, that we have elevated it to a high and exalted place in such a way that it has ousted other virtues that we could be practicing instead. Some of this anger is good and necessary. Righteous anger on the part of people who have been marginalized and oppressed and have never been given a voice in our society is not only understandable, it is essential. As Audre Lorde famously said, every woman has a well-stocked arsenal of anger potentially useful against those oppressions, personal and institutional, which brought that anger into being. Focused with precision, it can become a powerful source of energy, serving progress and change. Righteous anger, as I said, can be essential in spurring transformation on the individual and societal levels. And there are some things we need to understand with regard to the concepts of anger and forbearance using the lens of power dynamics. If you are a person who possesses a fair amount of power and privilege, experiencing and witnessing the anger of someone who is oppressed presents a good opportunity for practicing forbearance, rather than telling the oppressed person that they need to practice forbearance. I am a straight, white, middle-class, cisgender male that's pretty much the top of our heap in society right now. So when I witness someone who has been marginalized expressing anger and have an urge to say something like, "Whoa, cool your jets," or "anger kills," I have to practice forbearance and not say those things. In fact, if you are a person of relative power and privilege in conversation with someone with less power and privilege who is angry, telling them that they shouldn't be angry is almost certainly going to make them even angrier, and justifiably so. Since the beginning of time, people without much societal power have been told not to complain, not to be angry, not to question their place in the order of things. It's one of the ways that oppression perpetuates itself from generation to generation to generation. The racist trope of the angry black person, the sexist stereotype of the shrill woman, these things have led to further marginalization and oppression. So if you're at all interested in justice and liberation for all, please practice forbearance in the face of the righteous anger of those who are oppressed. In these situations, stepping back and practicing forbearance is a just response to justified anger. There is, however, a difference between righteous anger and excessive anger. There is a kind of anger that is self-destructive, that leads toward a downward spiral that is not healthy. When anger no longer leads toward greater energy and progress and change, but instead leads only to more and more anger, then it's probably time to take a step back and look at what's going on. There are times when a forbearing attitude towards one's own anger is healthy and necessary. It's important to know when it's time to turn away from the TV news or whatever else is the immediate cause of your anger and try to get centered in your breath or in the natural world or whatever else might help you stay grounded. I will admit that it is sometimes a very fine line between righteous anger and excessive anger, but it's important for each of us to consider where our anger is actually leading us and to respond in life-giving, life-affirming ways for our own sake and for the sake of those around us. There's been a good deal of talk in recent years about restorative justice as opposed to retributive justice. Restorative justice can be defined as a movement that emphasizes repairing the harm caused by wrongdoing rather than merely punishing the wrongdoer. When properly administered, restorative justice can lead to the transformation of people, relationships, and communities. It can lead to healing rather than perpetuating the cycle of harm. Forbearance is what makes restorative justice possible. Justice without forbearance, without taking a step back, is almost always retributive, only about retribution. Forbearance creates the space in which harm can be repaired, in which healing can occur, in which covenant can be restored. In this way, forbearance is one of our primary tasks, not only in our own community, but also in the larger world. Forbearance makes possible both justice and compassion. Without forbearance, justice is only retributive, and compassion is only an idea rather than a practice. I'll be leading a Bible study class again this year, and one of the points that I'll probably make at some point during this class is that some religious scholars see the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, as the story of God learning how to practice forbearance. The God of the Hebrew Bible seems to have what we might call anger issues. And forbearance is not something that comes easily to God. Just consider the story of Noah and the flood. As you might recall, at this particular point in the book of Genesis, humankind has proven itself to be utterly corrupt and wicked in every imaginable way. The state of moral decay is so bad that God just loses it and unleashes this terrible flood that destroys everything on the face of the earth, everything and everyone except for Noah, his family, and the animals that they're able to bring aboard their boat. But God seems to realize then that he might have gotten carried away, and essentially says to Noah, look, I may have gone a little too far with this flood thing. To make sure something like this never happens again, I want to offer you this covenant. Never again will I send a flood to destroy everything on earth. I make this promise to you, to your descendants, to every living creature, and I offer it without conditions. And to seal the deal, God put a rainbow in the sky, a visible symbol of covenant and divine forbearance. Over and over again in the Hebrew scriptures, we see God losing his temper, sometimes justifiably and sometimes honestly not so much. And then learning to practice forbearance and to return to covenant. The lesson seems to be, if God can do it, then maybe so can we. All of us, if we are in covenant with each other, can learn to practice forbearance and restore relationships when they have become strained or broken. It doesn't mean that we'll never break our promises, because we most certainly will. It just means that we understand that, as I've said before, being in right relationship is more important than merely being right. And forbearance is what creates a space in which healing and restoration might take place. For us as Unitarian Universalists, the rainbow is a multifaceted symbol. It represents our commitment to justice and equity for LGBTQIA people, and that's an important and powerful concept and commitment. But the rainbow also stands for the larger covenant we affirm through our principles, through our actions, and through our very being. It's a covenant that is sustained by goodwill, by a willingness to be vulnerable, and by practicing forbearance. I hope and pray that we will practice the virtue of forbearance in our behavior toward one another, in our work for justice and equity for all who are oppressed and marginalized, and in our work to transform ourselves so that our world might be transformed. May it be so. Amen.
It's time for our morning offering. This morning's dedicated offering will benefit Western Pennsylvania Fund for Choice. Abortion is an essential reproductive health care, and there's ever-increasing numbers of barriers to people seeking safe, compassionate abortion care in the Western Pennsylvania region. Western PA Fund for Choice helps clients pay for their abortion services, their transportation, and other costs associated with accessing abortion services in our region. If you'd like to give via our online giving system, you can do so one of two ways. You can go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving, and then follow the instructions. Once you get to the drop-down menu, please choose either Designated Collections to give to the Western PA Fund for Choice, or 2021 Pledge Collections for payments toward your pledge. Or you can give by text at 412-324-3130. We won't be passing around the basket today, but you can leave checks or cash in the basket at the welcome table on your way out if you'd like to make an offering. Please thank you very much for your generosity. We appreciate it.
You're welcome to sing or hum along with us. This is There Is More Love Somewhere.
Till I find it, there is more, somewhere more peace. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere.
More joy.
There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere.
Amen.
Nice choir.
Wow, what a lovely morning it's been. Please join me in saying the words to extinguish our chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community,
or
the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you for being here today. I would ask anyone who has the willingness and ability to stay afterwards and help us with tents and chairs. For now, we'll close with these words. May you be filled with the blessings of this covenanted community. May you carry them with you as you depart from here. May you discover the places in the world where these blessings are needed. May you have the courage to share them. May there be an open space within you to receive the blessings of the people whom you will meet along the way. Go in peace.
I like that.